Welcome to the channel. So I just told you guys yesterday about the Tahoe that we purchased and everything that went down with it. And I do regret not filming more. Like I said, I was going out to film that Tahoe, and right when I did that, the guy came and bought it. But when this all happened, it got me thinking about all the crazy stories, all the crazy things I've done when I was younger online on Craigslist. That was the main thing back in the day, was Craigslist. And nowadays, what's really hot is Facebook Marketplace. And, even though what I did with the 99 Tahoe was incredibly stressful, it was a lot of anxiety after I picked up the vehicle. It made me realize, after the vehicle was sold and all the pressure was off, and I recovered most of my money, taking a small loss of $500, it made me realize I actually had a lot of fun doing it. I had a lot of fun going out there, looking at the car, making a decision. Even though I made a very poor decision, it still, at the end of the day, was a lot of fun. And it made me remember, the things I used to do when I was a kid. And if I were making YouTube videos back then, I would be potentially one of the bigger YouTubers out there today, because I used to do crazy things back in the day. Crazy things. I mean, just buying cars online. One time I bought a 1998 Chevy Camaro. This was insane. I used to do these crazy things. This story is particularly crazy. I bought a 1998 Chevy Camaro, and I didn't have a lot of money. The truth is, I didn't have a lot of money, and I wanted to have a nice car that was all one color. I had a 92 Infiniti. It had a different color fender, different color hood. I was making like $10 an hour at the time. I worked full time, making $10 an hour. It was hard for me to save money. I couldn't get a brand new car. I couldn't even get a running car, and I managed to save up like $1,500, and I was gonna go buy this Camaro that wasn't even running for $1,500, and I was gonna put an engine in it and hopefully make a nice vehicle. Maybe I'd flip it. Maybe I would sell the vehicle after putting a new engine in it and whatever. But at the time, 98 Camaro, this was back in like 2010, 2011. 98 Camaro wasn't too terribly old, and it also had the advantage of the 3800 V6 engines. Those engines were everywhere. You could pick those up for $500. And if you could find a Camaro that was a V6, then you could turn around and flip that Camaro and make money. Like, you could make money on that, because if you put the engine in it, you can get the car for like $1,000, put an engine in it for like $500, and you could turn around and sell that car for like $6,000 at the time, $5,000 at the time. The challenge was finding a low mileage body, and that's what I found. The guy listed this vehicle, a 98 Camaro, at 60,000 miles, but it has a rod knock. At the time, you could put a vehicle, you could type in on Craigslist, Camaro rod knock, and you'd find a few Camaros that had a rod knock, and a lot of them were 3.5 liter or 3.8 liter V6 engines. The pushrod 3.8 liter V6 had 200 foot-pounds of torque, 200 horsepower, was a good engine. But for whatever reason, the Camaros had rod knocks. And what a lot of people didn't know is that you can get any 3.8 V6 and put it in a Camaro. You just have to switch everything over. So I would get the front-wheel drive V6 low mileage 3800 V6 from a Buick or something off of eBay or a local scrapyard, and I would put a low mileage engine in a Camaro body, and that was a fun sports car for me. But anyway, this Camaro was a 98 black with tan leather interior. It was listed on Craigslist in Southwest Detroit, where it's like a Mexican town. It's like the Mexican side of Detroit, Southwest Detroit. I went to look at this car. Like I said, listed for 60,000 miles, listed for $1,500. I'm thinking $1,500, I can get that car. I can get an engine for $500, and I can put that engine in. I can sell that car for 4 or 5 grand. This is back in 2010. Keep in mind, this is before the Camaro was even reintroduced, back when it was discontinued, because the new Camaro was finally coming back out. So anyway, I went to go look at this car in Southwest Detroit, and it was in a rough part of Southwest Detroit. Some parts of Southwest are kind of okay, but most of it's pretty rough. But you know, it was at a neighborhood, and the car was parked on a property, on a corner lot property, where there was nice houses, some relatively nice houses everywhere. Like I said, some parts can be decent, Southwest Detroit, but then there was a trailer, like from a trailer park, but there was just one trailer on the corner lot, and there was a bunch of cars parked on the lot. And I went, and there's the Camaro. The Camaro was buried by cars. There was like 3 cars in front of the Camaro, or you know what, maybe it was just one car. I think it was one car in front of the Camaro, but there was a row of 3. So it was like the Camaro was in the back corner, there's a car behind it, there's a car on the side of it. You couldn't get the Camaro out. And the guy was there showing me the car, and he's telling me, you know, all about the car and everything, whatever. So I look at the car and I say, you know, I want to know how many miles are on it. I know you said it has 60,000 miles. This was when I was more savvy and used to looking at used vehicles, and no, at the time I knew more like how tricky guys can be. But I looked at the car and the battery was dead, so I couldn't see how many miles the car had. The guy told me it had 60,000 miles. I said, well, we need to put a battery in the car so that we can see the digital odometer, so we can at least see how many miles it has. We put the battery in the car. The car didn't have 60,000 miles. The car had 170,000 miles. And I say, you know, you said the car has 60,000. The guy says, no, the car does have 60,000 because the engine has 60,000 miles. And I said, well, that's cool, but the car has 170 and the engine might have 60, but that doesn't matter considering the engine has a rod knock anyway. It's pretty irrelevant how many miles the engine has. And the guy kind of put his head down. He kind of knew that, you know, I don't know what kind of games people are trying to run with the used car market. They're really trying to run a scam. And I told the guy, like, that doesn't really matter. Like, geez, if you're going to run a scam, actually run the mileage back. Like, what kind of scam? People aren't even creative enough to actually go through the trouble of changing the odometers. They're just going to straight up lie to your face. But anyway, we put the battery in the car, and we saw that the mileage was not 60,000 miles. We saw that the mileage was 170,000 miles. So I told the guy, you know, that's not good. You know, that's going to take some money off of it. That took, like, right off the bat, you know, $500 off of the car. The mileage not being right. But the car was a clean 98 Camaro. It had nice leather interior, no tears. T-top car. It was all one color. It was all solid one piece, no rust. So, you know, I was still interested at this point. It was a black car, by the way. So I told the guy, you know, I looked under the hood and I looked at the work done with the engine swap, the 60,000 mile engine. All the work was shoddy. The transmission dipstick was missing. Totally missing. The engine, all the wiring was all over the place. It didn't look like anything was routed correctly. The dipstick was in the wrong position. It was the wrong dipstick. It was a mess. The vehicle was a mess. It was terrible. The work done was horrible. You know, the quality of the work, all the work done was terrible. And I told the guy, like, look, I can't give you $1,000 for this car because, for one, the mileage was wrong. For two, if I go in here and put a new engine in this car, I'm going to have to fix everything that was done wrong before it can be considered a good running vehicle. Not only do I have to replace the engine, I'm replacing an engine after a mechanic who didn't bother to put the dipstick in. Like, you went to pull the transmission dipstick out, the whole dipstick came out, the tube and all. So I told him, like, I don't even know if the transmission is good. So what I'll do is I'll give you $500 for this car, and I'll take the title. You can sign it over. We'll get a tow truck, and we'll take this car out of here. By the way, my Uncle Shanti was with me for this deal, and he was just, you know, hanging out, doing his thing, making sure everything was all right. So the guy was in a bind. So he goes, okay, that's fine. But I said, well, the car is buried. There's a car in front of it. How are we going to get this car out of the way so that we can get the Camaro out? It's blocked. Do you have the keys? The guy goes, no, I don't have the keys. This is not my property. This is not even my property. This is the mechanic's property who did the engine. Uncle Shanti opens the door to the car in the way. He reaches his hand inside of the car, puts the car in neutral. The car was all jacked up, so you didn't even need a key to put the car in neutral. You could just grab the shifter, and it didn't lock properly, so you just put the car in neutral, and then we pushed the car out of the way, pushed the car into the street. We pushed the Camaro out, and then we pushed the other car back into its spot like it was never moved. This is crazy. So we moved the car out of the way because it wasn't locked, and the shifter didn't lock in the park, and we put it in neutral. We pushed it out of the way, and we got the Camaro out. The tow truck driver was loading the Camaro onto the trailer, and all of a sudden a truck pulls up, pickup truck pulls up, raggedy old truck, loud pickup truck, old Ford, pulled up, and this guy was in it. This guy was literally a crackhead. His teeth were all messed up. He had that grungy sound you ever see, like a crackhead who's been using for a long time. They get this grungy like voice, maybe even alcohol. They get this real grungy, rough voice. He goes, hey, what's going on here? And I'm like, nothing, I just bought this car. He goes, the guy, the mechanic goes, I did everything I could for that car. I don't understand why it broke. Blah, blah, blah. He's like going crazy. He's like saying he doesn't know why it broke down, why it didn't last. Turns out the young man who paid the mechanic to do the work, he bought a low mileage engine, 3800 V6, for the mechanic to put in. But the mechanic, the engine had 60,000 miles. The mechanic upsold him on not only putting the engine in the vehicle, but doing the rods, the rod bearings, the piston rings, a full rebuild on the engine for like an extra couple $100, which is crazy. When he did the full rebuild on the engine, something didn't go back right, and it threw a rod after he did a rebuild on the engine. So this poor guy obviously knew zero about cars, bought a low mileage engine, and let this crazy mechanic do internal engine work on a new engine that he bought, and ruined the new engine that he bought. But he got the work done for so cheap. And part of the deal was that the crackhead mechanic was allowed to drive the car to Ohio and back, so that could be part of the payment, because the crackhead driver needed a car to drive to Ohio. So the crackhead driver put a low mileage engine in, but before he put the low mileage engine in, he took apart the engine, rebuilt it, screwed it up, then drove it to Ohio and back. And when he got back, it threw a rod. So the poor guy had to sell the car. He had no other option but to sell the car after all this happened. So the mechanic was saying that someone sabotaged the car and put sugar in the gas tank and caused the engine to fail. But really, he just took apart the motor and didn't even need to be taken apart. So the crackhead's going on and on saying someone put sugar in the tank. It's a conspiracy against him and all this stuff. The car is on the trailer, the tow truck driver, and he's driving. He's getting ready to pull away. The crackhead goes, wait a second. How did you get that car out of here anyway? We jumped in our car and left. We had the title in hand. We got out of there. Because by the time we got it all loaded up, he finally realized that somehow we moved the car out of the way, because he blocked it purposely so he couldn't get the car out. So the owner couldn't get his car out. The car was blocked purposely. And the crackhead finally figured out that we moved the car out of the way so that we could do our thing, that we can get the car out. Crazy story. So I got the car home. I got the 98 Camaro home. I found a local junkyard, bought an engine, $500. I worked on it at my job. I was working construction. They let me have a little space off to the side where I can put the engine in. Got a hoist. At that time, I was a different person. I was crazy. I had a insane work ethic. I just remember dragging an engine hoist across the whole construction yard. It was like a quarter mile of just dragging this engine hoist. It was so heavy, just dragging it over and by myself, removing this engine. And ordering a new engine. Uncle Shanti was a big help. He drove me everywhere in his F350. He had a Power Stroke. He had the 7.3 Power Stroke. Drove me everywhere in his F350 to pick up the engine. Whatever I needed, he took me there. And I picked up this engine, and he helped here and there putting it in. But I did most of the work myself. And I just remember getting stuck, you know, can't get this bolt, can't figure this out. I was figuring stuff out on my own. But I ended up putting that car together for like $1,200 cash total. You know, 500 here, 500 for the engine, 500 for the car, you know, 200 for the gaskets and whatnot, switching everything over. At the end of the day, that car ran pretty good. You know, it was a low mileage, front wheel drive engine. It ran pretty damn good at the end of the day. And I was just so happy with it. I was so full of myself. I finally got one car. It's all one color. 2 days after getting the engine in, it's raining. I'm running late for work. Boom! Crashed the car into the wall on the freeway. Totaled the car after 2 days of driving it. And that leads me into the second crazy Craigslist story. After doing that, I still had a running Camaro that was wrecked, and I really wanted to get back on the streets with another Camaro, and I ended up going on Craigslist again and buying another Camaro, and it was another crazy situation where I did another crazy purchase on Craigslist. That'll be my next video that I post, potentially the next video that I post, continuing this trend of crazy Craigslist stories. The second Camaro that I bought in Dearborn will be the next video. Anyway, thank you for watching. See you guys next time, and have a great day. Bye.